Hey everyone, happy Thursday, and yes, despite all of my squabbling and complaining in recent days about the sport, this is a golf shirt. So let's just get that right out of the way, Scott. I know if anyone's going to comment on the golf shirt, it's going to be you. All right, well, we're back for a Thursday review, and today I'm going with something a little different, maybe, or maybe not. I've covered a graphic novel on here before, but I have not covered a Rick and Morty graphic novel. So for this review, we're going to go with Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons. And I got a little bit of a backstory to this one, why I enjoyed it so much. Anyone who knows me, or has known me for a while, knows that, way back in 2019, I went on my first foray into the D&D world since the 4th edition days, and I went down to the Barnes & Noble off of Route 202 just north of Wilmington, Delaware, and I showed up and I purchased a player's handbook for 5e, and I purchased this as well. And the idea being that I thought that this kind of literature, if you could call it literature, would be good reading possibly for me as I got used to the 5e rules and everything. And I didn't have a lot that I expected out of this. I just figured I was reading graphic novels at the time. Why not pick one up? And as what happened afterwards, of course, was me and Judge Evie kind of went a little crazy. We played one time and then sent everything back, save for one 5e player's handbook. And then this. I kept this. And I gotta say, I really like this. I really enjoyed this graphic novel. I have read it cover to cover at least 4 times. And, even though back then I was kind of like, okay, we're not doing this 5e thing again, I felt like a good connection to this. Because the great thing about this graphic novel is it does explore more of Dungeons & Dragons than just 5th edition. Although now that I'm getting ready to play 5e, maybe my connection to this is a bit tighter or closer. I don't know. I really liked it, and let's talk about why. First off, let's go into the book itself. This was written by Patrick Rothfuss and Jim Zub, and the art was by Troy Little, the colors by Leonardo Ito, and the letters by Robbie Robbins. Anyone doing reviews on books, please make sure you give everyone the love who did the work in the book, all right? You went artists and editor, all that stuff. Did I do the editor? Did I say who the editor was? Maybe I didn't. Series edits, Chase W. Maratz and David Hedgecock and Sarah Gatos and Ari Yarwood. So quite a few people. And this is based on the Rick and Morty series by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon. And I should get this out of the way too. I am a Rick and Morty fan. I love Rick and Morty. I've watched the first 4 seasons several times through, and I know it's not for everyone, and that's okay. You don't have to like Rick and Morty too. There's nothing about, I don't subscribe to the whole thing. You have to be a certain intelligence level to like Rick and Morty. I don't subscribe to any intelligence level. I'm not even intelligent, but I do like Rick and Morty. I do like Get Swifty. I like everything about Rick and Morty. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Okay. So the basic premise behind this graphic novel is that Morty finds out that all the kids in school are playing Dungeons and Dragons, which seems pretty close to reality right now. Every 5 seconds, someone's playing D&D in my kid's high school. And mainly for Rick, he noticed a lot of young women are playing Dungeons and Dragons, and as the 14-year-old that he is, he wants to play D&D because he wants to meet, girls. And that's how things start out. And he meets an attractive clerk at a game store, and who invites him to her game table because she's short a rogue. So he goes home and he asks Grandpa Rick. If you don't know the Rick and Morty series, there's a lot to unpack here. But in most of the series, Rick is a scientist, like a mad scientist that has a portal gun that can go from dimension to dimension, and Morty is his grandson. Well, Morty asks his grandpa Rick to install D&D into his brain, just to download the books into his brain. And Rick reveals that not only does he know what D&D is? He's a huge fan. And the series kind of, goes on a journey where he invites some of his friends over from the 70s, his old gaming group, and they bring Morty in to explore AD&D First Edition, and Morty's character dies a lot. And then Rick creates a virtual reality simulation of AD&D Second Edition. They go to Third Edition. They do not speak of Fourth Edition. There was a really funny scene where Rick tells Morty, shh, we don't talk about 4E. I'll talk about 4E. I have no problem with 4E, but Rick doesn't want to talk about 4E. And then they go to 5E. And along the way, you learn that not only was Rick a D&D player, but Jerry, Morty's dad, was also a D&D player. And Summer, Morty's sister, that she too was a D&D, plays D&D. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. I loved how this series goes from generation to generation, and it explores like the series, the graphic novel. There's a series. There's a second one too called like Painscape, which I do have. Maybe I'll cover that in the future. I really love how it evolves from edition to edition, and it sort of goes and starts out behind a table with, Morty's introduced to gaming the way a lot of people are unsuccessfully introduced, at a table full of people who've been playing a long time, and, he's the odd person out. I remember trying to introduce Jen to role-playing games in the late 90s, and that's how we introduced her, and of course she didn't like it back then. But the cool thing is the story goes on is there's a lot of little details, and I love that in this graphic novel. All these little call-outs all over the book. They have the covers right. They talk about the Critical Role podcast. They talk about the different classes in the game. Jerry's character, he's a wizard. He's an abjurer. And, Rick can't stand that because, like, whoever chooses abjuration as their school of magic of choice, if they're a wizard, it's just a lot of fun. The early scenes with the hack and slash of First Edition and Morty having to roll up character after character. I think we've all been there in those kinds of games. Eventually, Morty does get to play his rogue, his half-orc rogue, Keth Silverson, and for the 5e characters, there are, in the back, their characters are built. So if you want to try them out at your table, you can. In fact, if you play the Rick and Morty starter set for D&D, these characters are in there. Actually, all of them are in there with the exception of Rick's character, of G. Willikers Petalbutt. He's not. That bard, unfortunately, is not in the starter set. So anyway, but in the end, the great thing about Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons, and why I like Rick and Morty in general, is it comes down to a story about family and about this family, and how in the end, really, the gaming does bring the family together, and they get to enjoy it together and have a good time. And yes, there is a sequel. I would recommend that too if you read this. I would not recommend this if you're not a Rick and Morty fan. I think if you're gonna read this, if you're like, I want to read Rick and Morty versus D&D, go watch at least the first season of Rick and Morty first. And if you've never tried it, give it a shot. Especially fans of the TV show Community, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Definitely, if you like Community, you'll probably like, because Dan Harmon wrote that also. You'll probably like a lot of Rick and Morty. And but if you don't like Rick and Morty, or you've never seen it, this isn't for you. You're not going to have a good time with this, and that's okay. You don't have to, be a Rick and Morty fan. It's okay if you're not. But everyone else, I would say pick this up. It is not very expensive. It's like $20. You can get off of Amazon or your local whatever comic book store and give it a read. I think the cover has changed. This is from back in 2019. I think the cover is different. I think the cover was different for Painscape. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it. And if you have any graphic novels especially you'd like to recommend, drop those in the comments below. Let's talk about those. I think next week we'll be talking about the Witcher series a little bit, because I am today, in a little while, I'll be finishing up book I think it's book 4, book 5, Baptism by Fire, that Witcher book. So I'll be wrapping that up, and I always want to make sure I'm covering what I'm reading. So that's the next book in the series that I will be talking about next week. I'll give a little Witcher overview. I like the Witcher books. I like the Witcher video games. I like the Witcher TV show. I like everything about the Witcher. And who knows? Maybe the ring light will show up again. I've been stealing this from Eli and Evie now to do a lot of the videos on my phone. But what I haven't been doing is turning it on. And this is the first time I turned it on. And I think I kind of like it. I like the lighting. I think I don't look quite as washed out as I do when it's just the screen. And we'll give this a shot. I'm also trying to do different shots from around the house. I'm in the living room now of the above the Dungeon Tavern. It was Cooper's birthday, so we're still decorated for all of that. The rest of the stuff is just stuff we have in the living room. So that's that. So play nice, friendos and kiddos, and I will see you all tomorrow.